I'm Scott Hall with Chad Hotfed. Chad, had you ever heard of Mad Frank? I think I asked you this a while back.
You know, I thought I had, but when I Googled Mad Frank and looked, I'm thinking of somebody else.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
see, we never got the KVRR stations where I lived during that time.
in Fergus area, did you live?
Well, that was long before that.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, he was on the earth like in 1985, and I was in Illinois. And
Well, there are three folks in the Bemidji area that are bound and determined to do a documentary about Mad Frank, and they are Christy Miller, Laura Gerhardson, and Mike Bradeen. And they're in our Kbxe studios this morning and joining us. Hi, Christy.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear us?
Oh, sure.
All right, then.
Yeah, and let's see. Laura, good morning, Laura.
Good morning.
And Mike.
Yes, that is the best pronunciation of Breeden I've ever heard in my life. Bradeen. That's awesome.
I think I
love
put too many E's in there, didn't I, Mike?
Bradeen. No, there's been so many incarnations of that.
Well, give
it's
us,
amazing.
what are some other incarnations?
Oh,
Breeden?
Bradon.
Bradon.
Often Brendan. But yes, it's butchered in a horrible last name. I love it.
Well, speaking of butchers, tell us who Mad Frank was. Or is.
Mad Frank was and is a ghoul character, very similar to Elvira. He's a horror show host, and he had a show with a couple of other strange characters that was broadcasting out of Fargo, North Dakota, 1985 to 95. So they had a 10-year run, and they were doing an excellent show that was just horrible shtick in between horrible B-rate films. I know I use the word horrible, but somehow they had this synergy, this how would you say, they had a formula, you know, they would make you sit there and watch through this horrible movie.
A whole bunch of oddball
and
characters.
Wait, and you'd stay through just to see the commercial break. Before they went to commercial, they'd come back and they'd have some skit going on, but they were just one of the greatest comedy troupes of all time.
Yeah.
I believe that.
It's like a comedy train wreck that you had to watch.
With rim shots and everything.
With rim shots and cheesy jokes and a marvelous, wonderful, golden Velveeta cheesy jokes.
Oh, rotten.
Well,
go ahead. We all witnessed this, and I as a new Bemidji person, right around the 80s, stumbled into it, and I didn't know anybody in the town, and he was actually my first friend in Bemidji. So late night, Friday nights, I would tune in and watch Mad Frank, and I became a very big fan, and I think these two people did as well.
Yeah, before there were like a zillion channels out there.
Yeah.
I remember going out to my grandparents' cabin on Lake Julia, and there were 2 stations, and every once in a while you could tune it just right and see Mad Frank and his crew introing these scary movies, which were at the moment to me very scary, but at this point are just wonderful cheese. So.
Well, I'd never seen Mad Frank. I've heard of him a few times. So I went online yesterday and I watched some of the shtick. It's really good, I think. Of course, I didn't see the movie, but boy, I thought it was very creative and funny, and I kind of couldn't take my eyes off him. He was really pretty creative.
It was definitely creative, and they were working at like a fast pace, getting those scripts out every week and making sure that Vanilla, who is one of the characters, was also their screenwriter. So she would write the scripts. They would barely have any rehearsal, and they'd get it done. Kind of like us.
Vanilla White, which was a play, of course, at the time on Vanna White.
Yeah.
But all kinds of characters like Icky Bod and the Mad Programmer. But they were all led by this guy, Mad Frank, who is actually Delray Dvoracek. And through this process of making this documentary film, we've gotten to know this guy very well, and he is just one of the most rad dudes I've ever met. Used to teach college, had involvement in the Cold War, riding around in C-130s and decoding Russian messages and things like that. He speaks fluent German and Russian. So just very smart people that decided to put on strange costumes and do a strange little show.
So
it wasn't their main job. This was something that they did for the love of the show.
Wow, that's amazing. So Delray is still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive, and he's in Fargo.
So
and we've been talking to him and getting this produced with him.
Okay, and that's Christy Miller, who's joining us, along with Laura Gerhardson and Mike Bradeen.
Very good.
Did I get it right?
It's Breadden.
Breadden?
I'm just kidding.
change it
Just
now.
kidding.
Right on.
And well, tell us about this documentary, because you just alluded to it, and the one reason we wanted to have you on today was to tell us why you're doing a documentary.
We're doing the documentary because Mad Frank Presents needs to be documented, and we need to tell the story. And there's more to the story than just Mad Frank and his cast of characters doing campy shtick before a horror show from 1985 to 1995. There's the issue of other stations across the nation picking up his signal and, in effect, kind of stealing it. And that's part of the story. That's kind of an important part of the story.
Right. They were essentially ripped off. They were doing this for not much pay at all. And across the country, this was during the dawning of in-home satellite use, stations were pulling this out of the, it was uploaded to satellite, and these stations across the country, including Canada, where they were pulling it off there, they would pull out the advertisements that were native to Fargo, and they'd put their own advertisements in and all this stuff. So they got raked over the coals, and they had a great product and ended up with nothing to show for it except for a fan base like us, So like any good documentary, it is an underdog story. It is a diamond in the rough that deserves more accolades than it's received.
What's Del Rey doing now?
He is a retired, good-looking gentleman. He spends a lot of time at the frying pan. He's what he's doing now is the documentary with us.
Good.
That's his main hobby. He does a lot of woodwork, whittles in his.
Yeah, he makes these awesome figurines that are probably about 8 to 10 inches tall, and he just whittles away on those. But he also, is just really excited that our crew is able to come in and take some of this footage that's been languishing on VHS tapes in some basements. And
well, yeah, they were old
them.
beta tapes too. Another reason why this is important to do this project right now is because these tapes were wasting away. They've recently been salvaged because the tapes were decaying, and we have full access to all of the salvage shows. So we've been combing through all those and piecing them together, and they're great. They're really great. So speaking of the frying pan, we're actually later on today, Christy and Laura and I are headed off to Fargo to go to the frying pan, 300 Main, and we're going to have Del there and do coffee and pie, and everybody's invited to come along. It's going to be a fun time, I think.
I think one of the other things, too, that we would like folks to know about is that we're doing a Kickstarter campaign to get this going and to get us a little bit of a budget so that we can make this happen. You could go to Kickstarter and type in location or type in Mad Frank.
Which is 2 Ds, by the way.
Yes, 2 Ds, Mad Frank. And so we're hoping to be able to get something stable so that we can go forward and do this. And I think, another thing that maybe you might want to know or might not is that the three of us, Mike and Laura and I, are all Blandon community
leadership
leadership
grads,
yeah.
alumni.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. And so Blandon, I think a lot of this comes from Blandon. It sure does for me.
It brought us together, and I think it's just really important for us to support our community and community artists, which we are, and I always say, if that potato salad made $70,000 on Kickstarter, I think we can get our little film going.
Hey,
Right.
yeah. What about Del Rey Dvorak's experience and background in theater or TV? Had he had a lot of it before he did this?
He had been doing plays and things like that. So when they had the channel and they were like, well, let's do something with it. He was at the table and they were talking about we'll find some hosts, And then they couldn't come up with anybody to do it. And they pointed at Del and said, why don't you do it? You have some history in theater. And he said, okay. And then they brought him over to the Fargo Playhouse, essentially, and he met up with a guy named Marty Jonason, who's very integral to all this, and he started to pick out this costume, this little strange hat and a little tie and a cape and these white gloves, and so the character was born out of that. But yes, Del is a well-versed linguist and playwright. He's an amazing author as well.
I think he told us a cool little story about the fact that he wanted to be in theater. That was what his goal was, but he fell in love with Verlene, his wife, and she said it's the theater or me, and he chose Verlene at the time. So once he was given the opportunity to be on TV and reenact some of his theatrical aspirations, I think he took that opportunity and ran with it.
This is Chad. What are some of the challenges you guys are faced with in putting this together?
Well, obviously, money is always the big challenge, and time. Time is another thing that the three of us are pretty busy. Mike is the executive director of Upstream TV here in Bemidji, and Lara, what's your position, Lara?
I have 3 jobs.
Yeah.
I work in education. I'm a program director for Students First in Bemidji, and also work for the state of Minnesota, as well as a radio announcer on the weekends.
So when
and I own a business in town, and so the three of us have a lot of irons in the fire, and so time is going to be a huge thing for all of us.
So in your documentary, if you're showing clips of movies and things, do you guys have to get rights and permission to use them, or is most of the public domain?
That's a part of the process that we're dealing with too, and some of the money that is being raised is to be able to do that, because we don't want to have to leave anything out. So that's a big part of the project. But we are moving to be able to utilize the bulk of it. You know, there's music that's popular, and back then it was a different time. So they were using a lot of different stuff that we do have to work to be able to use. We leave Laura in charge of it.
and the footage itself we have been gifted from the group, from the Mad Frank Presents group, and Tony Tilton, who put it together for us.
Right, who does Moorhead Public Access. But so what we've already done, I mean, everything's been shot. We've been going and visiting with these people. The cast is still all around, and we've sat down and interviewed and had very emotional interviews with all these people, and it's a very real human story. So, you know, how Christy says we all have irons in the fire. What's so great about this is when people take time out to highlight one another, you can, you know, suddenly bear witness to something that you never would have known about but deserves your attention. And I think it's really important. I thank you. You too. You guys are great. I love you guys.
That's Mike Breeden, Laura Gerhardsen, and Christy Miller telling us about a documentary they want to produce about Mad Frank, who hosted the Saturday Night Spooky Movie on KVRR in Fargo, North Dakota for about 10 years in the 1980s and 90s. If you want to find out more or contribute, go to that Kickstarter, Mad Frank, Mad with 2 Ds, is that right?
That's right.
All right.
That's right. Or the Mad Frank Facebook page would have links
to it as well.
All right.
You got a Mad Frank Facebook page.
Yep.
All right. And that is quite a face.
We've been posting on there.
That is quite a face, yes.
Quite a face.
Unforgettable.
Hey, thanks, guys. This is real fun.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right. You can call us for more information here, too, 800-662-5799.